All right. I'm pressing go live.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to Tapcaf Transmissions, the only Star Wars podcast live at this time talking about Shatterpoint by Matthew Stover. I am your host for the week, Corey, joined as always by my ennui feeling co-host, Mr. EckhartsLadder. How are you doing, Justin?
I don't feel very much ennui right now. At least I don't think so. But
Well,
I'm doing. Sorry, go ahead.
yesterday you were down and out for other reasons. How are you feeling after your vaccine adventures?
I actually feel so. Yeah, I got my second dose 2 days ago. Yesterday I was like knocked out on my ass, and today I actually feel better than normal. Like I feel like 110% today.
Nice. I'm going on Saturday for my second dose, so I'm kind of looking to you for a preview of what to expect.
What are
Because
you getting, or what
I
did you
I don't
get?
think
Did you get any?
I got Pfizer the first time. They don't tell you until you're there for at least,
Mm,
or at least they didn't tell me the first time. I could look at my vaccine receipt and appointment and see if it says anything, but I don't think it does.
mhm.
I assume I'm gonna get Moderna second, but
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
we
a
got a
lot of
lot
the
of Moderna.
Americans were kind of because I guess in America they don't do
Yeah.
the swapping, but they do in a lot of other countries, including Canada. Um, and yeah, it's partially because of shortage. Like we don't have as many Pfizer, I guess. And all the research seems to suggest that if anything, you might actually be better off having one of each.
Yeah, it's
Um,
there's
because
nothing really to suggest it's worse or that it's really different. It's more of a delivery mechanism that's changing, so it's who knows. But
yeah, this isn't the vaccine talk podcast.
yeah, but everyone should go get one. They're
Hmm.
free.
Hmm. Is there anywhere where they're not free?
If the companies had their way, then probably. But
All
yeah,
right.
so we are.
Any news you want to talk about before we get into the book?
Yeah, so we just got an announcement today. Big announcement from EA
Mm,
on what to expect
huge.
in Star Wars gaming, and nothing. Expect
Nothing.
nothing.
Yeah. Honestly, I do kind of appreciate them being so upfront. Like, so for those who don't know, EA Play is. I honestly haven't been paying attention. I think it's a week and a half from now because I kind of figured there'd be nothing.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, now we know for sure that there's going to be no Star Wars news at EA Play. My only real hope was we'd get a bit for Jedi Fallen Order 2, but I figured that was 2023 anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
Like on the one hand, I'm willing to chalk it up to like pandemic delaying everything and making everything harder to make. So as far as that goes, maybe kind of is what it is. But on the other hand, like I really expect we would have gotten anything announced if it wasn't for that. Maybe Fallen Order would have been announced if not for that. But
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
still
I feel like everything has probably been like I'm just gonna assume everything has been pushed back like a year, um, just because of like COVID and whatnot. So yeah,
yeah. So
it's still a bummer though. Like it is still a bummer because you're
yeah.
always kind of hoping there's something secret because now we essentially know there's gonna be nothing until like 2023. Like we're gonna get Fallen Order 2, and that's pretty much it. And Lego Star Wars, maybe. Um, so we
Yeah,
also don't know what's going on with that. That's also like a year off, like or a year past its like initial release date. So
yeah, it's especially weird though having them say they're like doubling down on Star Wars games and
hmm
then have like nothing to announce. If you're gonna say that, at least like wait until maybe you're close to having something to announce, or
yeah,
because I don't know. I guess doubling down on nothing is still nothing. So
yeah, and I mean you can over announce things. Like I think Star Wars as a whole, when it comes to movies, tends to over announce.
yeah,
Where it's like, oh, we've got a million things that may or may not come, and you kind of lose a bit of trust in the brand when they do that because you're like, okay, this movie's supposed to come, but so are all these other ones. But they're doing the opposite now, where they're completely under announcing. Like, tell us you're working on something, even if it's years off. like gamers are used to waiting for things. Like you can tell us a game that's not going to come out for 5 years or
Yeah.
4 years. Like that's why I'm a little concerned. Like maybe there is nothing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think that's the fear that some people would have is like, oh, is this because there's not going to be anything for another 4 or 5 years? Because like it's very unlikely we get anything that's not from EA until 2024. Like 2023 is the absolute earliest that can be. But that'll probably be when we start hearing about more of the games that are potentially being made. Like we know Ubisoft's doing the open world one, which we know essentially nothing about. But
mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, it sucks. I'm hoping that like once the Switch flips in 2023, whenever that day is, that like someone's been working on one for a while. Because I assume, I mean, we knew last year that the contract was going to run up, so I'm going to assume also that Lucasfilm has been telling people for a few years that like the contract's going to be up. So
mhm.
maybe someone's been working on it, but I mean, at this point, who knows? Just a mess.
Yeah, like EA will still be making games after the exclusivity's up. One thing that I've seen a lot of people say is like the idea that they're losing the exclusivity contract means they're not allowed to make Star Wars games, and that's just
Yeah.
completely false. It's just they're no longer the publisher for Star Wars games. That's gone back to
Hmm.
Lucasfilm Games, which is kind of a restructured LucasArts, but still more of a vestigial version of what it used to be. They're licensing it out to more publishers now rather than having EA kind of take the position that LucasArts used to, which is kind
Hmm.
of the arrangement they used to be under. So you will still see
Yeah.
EA making Star Wars games, just you're going to see other people making it too. They haven't been disbarred by Disney from making Star Wars games.
And also for me, this kind of makes the decision not to support Squadrons like even more kind of a head
Yeah.
scratcher because there's like nothing coming. Like if you had Squadrons and if they pumped that up even as like not even a triple A game but as like a double A game with support, which is like you see with a lot of games like is I don't know, like there's lots of really popular shooters for example that like initially probably didn't meet the triple A standard of like dev time and production costs and stuff, but like they get supported so much. It's like you've got nothing else here right now. Like that would have been something decent at least to fill the gap. So I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
I'm kind of curious what EA Play could even really have because like I think it's also been said there's not going to be anything for Mass Effect and
Yeah, they said Mass
uh
Effect. I think they said Dragon Age.
yeah, like any of their big properties, it seems like there's nothing going on right now. Well, Mass
I
Effect,
don't
we kind
know.
of know there's something being made,
Yeah,
but we don't know
they're
what it
making a
is.
game. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
anyways,
they said they're working on like the next adventure in the universe, but yeah. We're not here to talk Mass Effect today. We're here
they're
to
gonna
talk
rename Andromeda because no one really played it the first time, and then hope that no one notices that it's the one that they were mad at before. Some slight changes.
I yeah. Did you get through the Mass Effect trilogy by the way?
I am not half. I'm somewhat of the way through two right now.
And you're
Because
liking it?
I've never played Mass Effect other than a few hours in Mass Effect 1 when it first came out.
Mhm.
So Legendary is a new experience for me, and I've avoided
Mhm.
spoilers for like 15 years now. So I have like a few vague notions of some stuff that happens, but
Mhm.
for the most part, I don't know my Turians from my Quarians, so I'm just
There's
learning
like
as I
one
go.
Quarian and one Turian that I know. So, yeah.
Well, I didn't
I
know
mean,
which was which at first, so
okay. I mean, it's also kind of a game with multiple endings is also kind of hard to spoil, but yeah.
I know that there's something big happens at the end of 3. I don't know what that is. I have no idea what the thing that people have been talking
I
about and
will
complaining
say
about for
that the
years.
trilogy does come to a conclusion. That's absolutely a thing that
Yeah, like I
happens.
don't know what form that takes. I don't know why people have been mad for so long about it.
Mhm.
I just know that the extent of my knowledge about what happens in Mass Effect 3 is a screenshot of Garrus kind of laying in a corner. And that's it. And
I don't even. Okay, I don't even
so
know what that context of that would be.
yeah, so please no one tell me. I don't want to hear
Okay,
it.
all right. So let's talk about the book. We're
Didn't read
talking
it.
about.
One.
Okay, we're done. Thanks everyone. Okay, we're talking about Shatterpoint, a Mace Windu story. I think is the subtitle. Um,
When I was making the thumbnail, I had to fight really hard not to put that instead of Tapcaf Cringe. So I'm glad it was going through
Shatterpoint,
your.
Mace Windu, a Star Wars story, A Heart of Darkness is the full
Yeah,
title, I believe.
I was gonna say I
uh,
accidentally read Heart of Darkness instead.
do you want to give a brief overview of what happens in this book, Corey?
Right, so Mace Windu, famous Jedi Master, is met with news that his former apprentice and fellow Jedi Master, Depa Billaba, who
Mm-hmm.
there's a whole other thing going on here, but like, is there cronyism going on with how they appoint the Jedi Council? Because like all of Yoda's apprentices down, Mace Windu, all that, like it questionable. So we'll definitely need to get into that.
Yeah,
But
because Depa's basically like his daughter as well. They're very
yeah,
close, and she's also a Jedi Master at this point
yeah, because like
on the council.
Yoda, Count Dooku, Obi-Wan, they skipped Qui-Gon because Qui-Gon was too much of a renegade, a bad boy in the
Mhm.
Jedi. And you've got Mace Windu, you've got Depa, then for some reason Oppo or Incisus, but who knows how he fits in, what dirt he's
He
got on the
would just
rest of
look
them.
too weird. Nobody wanted to talk to him and say no.
But yeah, so Depa has been on Howren Kal, which is Mace Windu's homeworld. She was sent there to fight off the Separatists because it's kind of at the focal point or the shatter point of a bunch of other systems that they need to control for the sector. And she's been gone for a while, and Mace gets this ominous message, and she's been
Mhm.
lost to the jungle. So Mace gets his gear together, heads back home, and heads into the jungle to find Depa and drag her home. In the
Yeah,
meantime, he learns about love, life, civilization, the jungle, and Car.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the Jedi are kind of fucked at this point, like the things they're doing. So Depa was basically leading an insurgency group on this planet, and it's kind of like a colonial action almost. But also it's like a proxy war between the so there's like a couple things going. First of all, there's a proxy war between the Republic and the CIS, which the Republic have kind of won. They've pushed the CIS off the planet using this guerrilla group. But the guerrilla group also existed to fight this kind of like larger colonial war against these off-worlders. The planet Harun Kal is covered in these jungles. There's not that much actual livable land, but the part of the land that is livable is covered in these jungles, which have lots of rare minerals and fungi and just other things, bark from trees that these off-worlders want to use. And there's kind of been this long war between the off-worlders and the local population called the Summertime War, which has just been ongoing for a very long time. So that's what Depa ends up kind of getting caught in. Even after she ends up winning her war, she sort of decides to stay on the planet and help the Corran with this other conflict they've been living, basically.
Yeah, so the Balawai or off-worlders are
Hmm.
trying to harvest all the jungle stuff, and
Yeah.
then the Karanai are basically trying to fight the jungle back with their grazer herds and everything to not die. But
Hmm.
the prospectors are always going out armed, so they come into conflict with the Karanai, and it just turns into a constant, persistent war.
Hmm. So I guess now that this is a very different Star Wars book. I talked about this a bit in a video and on Twitter and stuff. It is also a Matthew Stover novel. Wait,
Yeah,
is it?
it's
Oh, yeah,
Shatterpoint, a Matthew Stover story.
yeah. So, do you just want to give your general impressions on it before we continue? Because it's different.
Yeah, so I've actually read three of Matthew Stover's four novels recently because we did episode 3 recently, but I was also
Hmm.
doing an NJO reread, and he wrote Traitor in New Jedi Order, which is actually a very similar book in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
It's there. This is basically a character study of Mace Windu, looking at the role of the Jedi and Mace's view of civilization, and kind of like the Jedi and the Republic as the bulwark of civilization against the metaphorical jungle.
Hmm.
And in Traitor, it's the breaking of Jason Solo by Vergier, which gets recontextualized later with Sith Vergier,
Not talking
and
about
that's a
that.
whole different thing. But yeah, so it it's something that he does a lot and that we kind of praised with the episode 3 novelization of just how well he was able to portray the characters and their motivations. And so both with Trader and Shatterpoint, you get kind of 400 pages of just examining one character and what makes them tick and what their motivations are. And so both are actually quite a bit darker than you'd kind of expect, even from the Del Rey period, which was generally darker than what you get in Bantam, which is a lot more kind of like
fantasy and
lighthearted,
space
fantasy, silly. Yeah, because like there's war in Star Wars is always so sanitized, and it's just
it's not in this book.
Yeah,
like you've got kids killed, you've got kids as child soldiers, you've got like slaughter. It's like it's not like faceless clone is killed by faceless battle droid.
Yeah,
or
it's not
vice
like
versa.
cool guy in armor using epic weapon, and like the epic weapons are in here. Almost everything gets name dropped, fully described, but it was almost kind of a way to keep that element of it while showing like when this is still happening in those other places, this is the reality of what's going on the ground. And like they talk about Mace's usual role and the Jedi's usual role as general as being kind of like the bird's eye view of what's going on with their clones and with the battle droids, compared to actually being in the thick of it. And then Mace kind of thinks of it as like, oh, what's going on here is so separate from what's going on in the rest of the Clone Wars or what's going on in the rest of the galaxy, but those lines get a lot more blurred as he starts to realize like what the reality of those wars are and what the reality of civilization is.
I still don't think he quite gets it though.
No.
Like I think for one, this book could be called Mace Windu Makes Everything Worse.
Yeah.
Like objectively. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you though. Continue.
No, that was done.
Because I think Mace kind of misses the big point. He's on and he misses like the latter half of like the Heart of Darkness style book, where it's like
he misses the point where London is the jungle too.
Yeah, exactly. His whole idea is, and this is where like I really like the first half of this book, and the second half fell apart for me a little bit. Not to the point where I disliked it, but to the point where it moved it from like an S tier to like an A tier, or maybe even a B tier, probably an A.
Yeah.
But like the first half was just really good and completely different, and then the second half falls back on this. It's like a big battle. A lot of the kind of themes and stuff developed in the first bit are thrown away, and Mace kind of misses the point. And this is like the latter half of Heart of Darkness, where he thinks it's civilization, in which is, you know, the opposite of the jungle, and it's civilization which will stop all the cruelty and the brutality, when like in reality he's in the middle of what he would probably call a civilized war. It's a war over like over civilizations and war over star systems having trade rights and stuff. Like he's being killed by civilized or not he's being killed, but people are being killed by civilized weapons. And it's just like he misses the entire point where like and they even kind of talked about this earlier. It's like the jungle doesn't try to kill you. Like the jungle does kill you sometimes, but like that's just nature.
Is.
Yeah, it just is. And like that's something that I was kind of hoping he would come to realize at the end. Like he even goes on this weird rant about like the myth of the noble savage and stuff. And I was just like, he's so missing the point where like he's in the middle of a war where like these incredible weapons are bombarding planets, and like he just really misses. He's really off the mark there.
Yeah. I guess we could talk about you could just get straight into the nightmare and slash vision thing, because that relates both to Trader, to how he's perceiving the conflict overall, the relationship between Coruscant and Horan-Cal.
Maybe we'll just want to just set the kind of.
Well, I figured this might be a thing
point
for you to do, since this has been
just
a big obsession point for
your.
your.
Sure. So basically, Mace arrives on Horan-Cal. He's tracking Depa. Depa leaves him this message, by the way, where she's like gone fully mad, and she's like she's a Jedi who can see now, and it's the most dangerous thing there is, and she's become the Knight, etc., etc. So he travels to the planet. He's got to find contact with this guerrilla group, who she was basically leading. He eventually finds through a series of mishaps. He's in the city for a while, but he gets sent out into the jungle, and he finds this guy named Nick and his crew. And they're basically, this is kind of my favorite part of the book, what a lot of people call pretty boring. He's going through this jungle, kind of occasionally coming across these atrocities, whether it's people being hanged or like children killed, or like whatever else. A bunch of bad things happen to people he's with, and eventually, like the jungle just has such a toll on him that he's having all these nightmares. He's totally in his head. He's like on the edge of the dark side, even when nothing like super dramatic is happening to him. It's just like the kind of weight of everything is almost like inescapable, and he can't get out. And he has this dream on one occasion, um, which I kind of talked about in a video and on Twitter, where he sees Coruscant covered in an alien jungle, much worse than on Harun Call. He sees it, the Senate being destroyed and the Jedi being destroyed, the planet being orbitably bombarded. Um, is there something else, Corey, that I'm forgetting? I think that's
Uh, no, I think that's the gist of it.
so. A lot of people take that as a Yuuzhan Vong reference, which I think is definitely a valid interpretation, and maybe like I think that's perhaps even what the author was hinting at. But my thing is that I think that interpretation is much less important than like this isn't really, at least the first half of the book is not really like a big lore book. It's more like a introspective kind of um thoughtful thing. So for me, like this is clearly more about he's worried that like his representation of peace and everything good, which is Coruscant and civilization, and the Senate building itself, is being destroyed and overtaken by this jungle. So it's
Mhm.
like the debate has raged online for over a decade about whether he meant the Yuuzhan Vong or whether it's just an allegory. I kind of fall down on the side of it's mostly an allegory and any kind of connection is secondary. But yeah.
So the exact passage is in my dreams here, I've seen the destruction of the Jedi, the death of the Republic. I've seen the temple in ruins, the Senate smashed, and Coruscant itself shattered by orbital bombardment from immense ships of impossible design. I've seen Coruscant, the seat of galactic culture, become a jungle far more hostile and alien than any on Haruncal. I've seen the end of civilization. So like I agree with you that like the primary purpose there is the just the broader themes of the book, in that it's I don't know if it's meant to be like a force vision, or like I don't think that would be what its primary purpose is of like cool tie into the Vong. But I do think it is definitely meant or comes from the Vong forming of Coruscant. Like I think it would be very difficult for it not to have come from that, considering this was written literally right after
Mm.
Traitor by Stover. Like when he was doing the press tour and interviews for Traitor, he was in the middle of writing Shatterpoint, and Traitor is kind of the
Yeah.
book that was most based on Yuuzhan Tar. So I do think that
I,
like primary purpose is
yeah.
absolutely the those themes, but I do think that there's a definite intentional connection to Yuuzhan Tar.
Yeah, I agree. And like there's certain things that are like the use of alien, for example,
Hmm.
is a good one. I guess for me, like my big problem is like in from an out of universe point, I definitely think you're right, like for the reader. But for like Mace Windu himself, and like if you're actually looking at it's like the if the Force is going to warn Mace Windu or scare Mace Windu with one thing, for one, I think the Clone Wars is far more destructive for like the ideals that Mace Windu holds dear, where basically it plunged the galaxy into lawlessness and fascism for like 2 decades plus and destroyed the Jedi. Then like the Yuuzhan Vong War, which is like far less of a pressing issue to Mace himself, and far more kind of irrelevant because like another one of the themes throughout the whole book is the fact that like Mace Windu is also on this planet experiencing something that is going to spread galaxy wide. Like he's seeing how the natives of the planet are kind of how they've adapted and become cruel and hard to this war, and he's kind of realizing that everybody across the galaxy is going to, you know, um, going to turn this way eventually, or that's what he's scared of.
Well, I think there is kind of a distinction between the Empire and the Yuuzhan Vong War that would be thematically important for Mace, where he does make a when he's considering what's happening with Depa, especially, he does make a clear distinction between the dark side as like evil intent, as like almost part of civilization that he can understand and grasp and deal with and will even accept to a certain extent. Whereas the kind of like darkness that he's sensing in Depa is totally alien to him, and that's the thing that he's really afraid of. So the Empire, as much as it would be just a complete obliteration of everything he thinks he believes in, it's conceivable for him. Whereas when he's coming to Harun Kal and the lack of civilization, it's just understanding that that can be a thing is something that he struggles with. So
Mhm.
even if you were looking at it from just like, I don't think that reference, if the themes of the book weren't what they were, I don't think that reference to Coruscant being taken over would have been put in there. But I
Mhm.
think even if you look at it as a reference to Yuuzhan Vong, it does work for the kinds of things that Mace is just struggling to come to terms with. Like, this can apply to Coruscant in ways that you don't think it can. Like, if you lose the Clone Wars, that's
Mm.
it's not just like this, oh, two armies shake hands with the generals and then everyone's happy having
No,
been blown
you
up.
agree. You agree. I'm sorry. You're right. I
You're
agree. You agree. You agree. No, I agree. I think
you're a
I think I
Columai.
let my yeah. I think I let my kind of frustrate. I think my frustration really is the fact that like there are so few opportunities in Star Wars where you can like take something as like a deeper meaning,
Mhm.
or to like actually look at something and like give it even it's a very basic theme and it's not a unique theme, but it's like you could take it thematically or you can kind of take it from a lore perspective and it's just I guess my main frustration is like the fact that this is one of those cases and it's the thing that people are focusing or seem to have focused more on for the past kind of decade and a half is just the lore thing, if that makes sense, I guess.
No, you're definitely agree with that. And uh like I've got a video that I'm doing for this weekend just complaining about like everything being taken at just at face value in Star Wars.
Mhm.
Like, I think I complained to you about Gottle Goob and Farbog.
Yeah.
So it's about that. And like the thing with Dr. Afra a couple years ago where Patina Vor was like trying to claim responsibility for the Empire, and like it was so difficult for some people to just accept, like, no, this is what one character in universe is saying their perception is. So then when you get to like something even more abstract than that, of just what are the themes of the story being told, there's a lot of elements of like people just are unwilling to look past Star Wars as this
Mhm.
list of things that happened in a universe that doesn't exist, to like, no, these are stories being told with an intent to the messages that they have, or the things the characters are going through for a purpose beyond just saying this is a date when this thing happened.
Yeah, I agree.
You're agreeing.
This is why I kind of got in a fight. Oh, not a fight, but I got in a little disagreement with some of the Star Wars wiki mods or editors on their Discord because I basically put a tweet out saying that the editors lack nuance sometimes, which is probably unfair, and I understand why that hurts some people's feelings. But my point was kind of the same as yours, where like not everything should be taken at face value, and not everything needs to be kind of made into a point that can fit nicely into an encyclopedia. You know what I mean?
Hmm. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Okay.
But one thing uh that was kind of weird to me here is just how on board with Palpatine Yoda and Mace Windu both seem to be.
Yeah. Especially
uh
Mace.
yeah, which I don't know how much that tracks with even the Revenge of the Sith level, but like obviously that's much later in the war. But it seemed like in Attack of the Clones they're a bit more wary of Palpatine than they were here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think. Yeah. It's weird too because of how little that part's in the book.
Yeah,
But
but I
because yeah,
think
he
like
is on the planet for a lot. But yeah, it's. I wasn't sure what to think about that either.
it is a thing that seems to be mostly set up for the theme. So like any interpersonal conflict between the three of them gets kind of pushed aside to have Palpatine be this representative of, like, he's kind of put forward as the embodiment of civilization in a way that Carvaster is put forward as like uh the embodiment of the jungle. And like the important element there being that obviously Palpatine is this being of pure
Yeah.
evil in a more traditional sense.
Yeah, what I'll say is Palpatine is kind of going with the dedicated bureaucrat or like dedicated politician, like my life is for the Republic thing. And he's still going for that in Revenge of the Sith and the Stover novelization. It's just like I think at that point, Yoda and Mace have really seen through it because they've seen him just like
Yeah,
grasp for more and more power. So maybe that's like the main difference by that point, I guess.
yeah. And at that point, like the only reason that they don't suspect him of being the Sith Lord is because he's already in charge. So
Yeah, exactly.
that's
They're
really
like he's
gone
already got
downhill.
enough power, so yeah. Yeah. Um okay, so they're going through the forest for a while. They lose a couple of the group members. What did you think of the band, especially Nick? Nick is kind of Mace's right hand man throughout this book.
Yeah, I like Nick.
Hmm.
Chalk was all right too. Like there aren't that many actual characters in the book, and then you have like Besh and Lesh who are just kind of there to
Yeah,
die. They're the
yeah.
red shirts of the group. But
I like Nick. I listened to the audio version of this, and it was really well done. It was the new Legends re-release, so it was like the first time this had gotten. I think it may have gotten an abridged audiobook before, but they had a guy who did a good job with Mace Windu, and Nick was saying "she" a lot, almost like what's his name from The Office, or from The Office. What's his name from The Wire? Very different show. Um, I'd
I'm-
love to see a. What's that guy's name? The anyway, he guy who says "she" all the time, like shit. Like it. Does that translate? Is that in the novel somewhere?
yeah,
Okay,
it's like SHEE in italics.
okay. Because I was going "she," and I was
Yeah,
like, "What is he saying? Shit? Like, what's he saying?"
I was afraid that Nick had died at the end because he's too great to die, but I think he's in like Shadows of Mindor as well. Because like Carvaster's in Shadows of
Mhm,
Mindor, I think Nick is too, like
mhm.
working for Chronal. That's
Yeah,
another story that's kind of the same thing where like we're gonna have to talk a lot about what's being taken at face value because isn't that the one that's like a
yeah. It's like you
explicitly
don't.
just a secondhand story or whatever?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly. It's been a long time since I read that, and I didn't know the characters, so. But Carvaster's kind of interesting one. He's I don't know. People call him Mace Windu's brother. I don't know if that's exactly what their relationship was. He calls him Do Shalom, um, which like I thought could have meant cousin or
Yeah,
something
they're just in the same clan,
in the
so
same
or like
clan. Yeah, but
family,
like all
so
the clickbait YouTubers are like Mace Windu's brother who was more powerful than like whatever.
yeah,
But
that's not.
yeah. Carvaster, what do you think of that character? Because that's a bit of the old Star Wars. People complain that he's a bit of Star Wars power creep because he's like
It's
he is more powerful than Mace Windu. Like at least when like he beats Mace Windu's ass like
he
pretty
beats Mace
bad.
Windu's ass, but like the thing that he's shown as being really good at is excelling in that particular environment, right? Like
Hmm.
the thing that wins him the fight with Windu, like he's good at fighting, he's strong in the Force, but he's using the Force in a way like that is kind of unique to that area. Like Mace is kind of blinded by everything going on in the jungle. His ability to uh, kind of sense what's going on around him is clouded the entire time. But that's where Carvaster learned to use his own power, and he's able to get Mace to fight him on his own terms. He's able to get everyone to fight him on his own terms, and like Mace
Hmm.
is the first one that comes and challenges that in any way. So he's definitely really powerful, but I don't think he is like the demigod that he seems to sometimes get. Or
Yeah,
like
I
it's
mean,
mostly fear of him that gets people going. Oh,
what just happened?
just kicked my desk.
Okay. Yeah, it's and Mesa's kind of dealing with that too because he's like, man, this guy's doing more than we ever could, and like, or he's doing things that I could never have done, and I trained my entire life, like dedicating myself to the Jedi arts, and he's just like the heal, or I guess that's more Depa who's saying that, like the
Yeah.
healing arts and stuff. But
Well, the
yeah,
Jedi have to learn like restraint and things
discipline.
like that, whereas Kara is just like pure instinct in a lot of ways. That's how he's kind of
He
represented
literally
to be.
loses the ability to like talk as a human because he did his Tom Pelcher cock or Tom cock, Tov or whatever it's called. I can't remember what it is, but his like journey into the jungle
Mhm.
without any. But yeah, one thing I didn't like about his character was the continual like, is he or isn't he like a fully bad guy? Whereas like he keeps double crossing Mace, and it's like, oh, he wasn't really double crossing him, then he's saving him, and then at the end he kind of does double cross him, and that was a bit tiring. I kind of wish that he had just kind of been dealt with earlier, maybe.
Yeah. Like I think it was always pretty clear that he's like terrible in a lot of ways, but he really is just a representation of their circumstances.
Yeah, like I didn't feel like he was terrible, like because he cares about his clan. He doesn't straight up kill people who don't deserve it.
He's good as kills them though.
You're right. You're right. He does kill them. Um, yeah, that's true. Because Mace talks about that. He's like, you kill them, you just don't want to take responsibility. He
Yeah.
does kill them. Um, I don't know. I guess like I kind of didn't like the scene where he like there's a scene when Mace is leaving and Carvaster jumps onto the I think it's a speeder, and he's like I respect you, and Mace Windu's just like fuck off.
Yeah. I got
And it's
really tired of all those conversations where I was like,
mhm.
uh hello, cousin, brother, whatever it directly would translate to. Like they're explicitly
Clanmate.
not brothers, but
Yeah.
uh
Clanmate of some sort.
yeah. And
Probably like
Mace
a
is like,
cousin or a
no.
nephew or
And he's
yeah.
like, yeah? No. Yeah, but what if
Yeah.
we are? No.
And it was kind of frustrating too, where like you can I don't know, from the reader's point, you can kind of understand what he's going through, especially where like Mace is able to emphasize with Deppa, who's like, we don't know for one, we don't really know exactly what Deppa did. So Deppa's kind of gone mad. She's been lost to the darkness. We don't know exactly how. It seems like she did some pretty shady shit while she was leading the little mercenary
Yeah.
group. But
They also do make a point of like the thing that the ULF, which is the guerrilla group
Upland
that
Liberation, yeah.
yeah, that Depp is with, the things that they get credit for doing, that they kind of take credit for doing, a lot of the times they didn't really do anything. It was
Hmm.
just they did one or two things and then kind of let the fear of them spread by shit that just like happens because of what's going on between every other group in the summertime war
Hmm.
and just happens in the jungle. But uh one
Yeah,
thing
they're like,
that's go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, Deppa's main thing is she's like a conduit of all the negative energy because she's
Yeah.
a Jedi and she's empathetic. Sorry, continue.
One thing that always kind of bothers me with Star Wars, and maybe it's just something that's leaking into this, and I'd have to go back and check how much Mace actually does it, because I don't know that he actually does in this, but like a lot of the times there'll be this one big bad, which is kind of Carvaster here, and the Jedi will slaughter like 6 trillion other random
Hmm.
bad guys. I think like Luke in Battlefront 2 is does
Hmm.
this
Yeah.
with the guy, but he'll like kill a bunch of people heading to him. There's this one guy who's like clearly done the worst things. Like, no, I can't kill you. You must stand trial for this, and
Hmm.
it's wrong to kill you. It's like, okay, well, you didn't care about that like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, I made a meme about that like last year where it was like the Jedi will do anything they can to like redeem this one main character dark side user, then slaughter like the 100 stormtroopers like that he's got
Yeah,
to kill on the way to the final confrontation. Yeah. I don't know if he did that specifically, but one moment that I found really frustrating in the book is so they kind of all leads towards this one final battle, which I'm sure we'll talk later. And there's one part where it comes down to Deppa steals an enemy, I think I forget what they call it, a gunship.
yeah,
Steals a gunship and she kills a bunch of troopers inside. And Mace acts like she's just committed like the worst sin ever. But like literally 2 seconds before that, Mace Windu had tricked all the droid starfighters in the area to fire on those vessels. So like he had like pretty much directly been responsible for killing like probably 1,000 people, and Deppa's killed like 10, and he's acting like she's the one
yeah.
who's like lost sight of the big picture here. I'm like Mace, like there's literally no difference between what you did. Just you killed more people. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if that's intended to be that way, because like it's not even through inaction, it's through action there that like he's causing these people to die. And it's like just because she literally hefted the lightsaber, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I didn't like that.
Yeah. Well, she tries to kill herself at the end, and then Nick shoots the gun out of her, or shoots the lightsaber out of her hand. So that was pretty epic.
I
But
gotta take my kid to go pee. I'll be right back.
all right.
You just open the door.
So yeah, like Mace doesn't like Mace tries to avoid killing people pretty much as possible in the book. Uh, so it's certainly less true here than it is in a lot of other Star Wars stuff. But when you get towards that last bit of the book where it is just kind of the all-out battle, he does make a lot more attempts to keep Carr alive than he does with a lot of other people. And it is symbolically bigger for him, but it's still
Sorry, I'm back.
still
Sorry.
not quite as pure as he would probably like to think it is. But
Sorry about that.
no problem.
Had to get him lifted on there. He could do the rest himself. Sorry, so what were you saying there?
I was just talking more about Mace killing versus not killing and taking Carvaster in. Yeah.
Yeah, I did like how Mace is kind of like struggling with the dark side through this book. Like he's like, I like that one scene where he's fighting off the gunships and he is like looking for an excuse to murder the ones that are fleeing away, and he's like, "What the hell?" I for me there was like I don't know, probably the halfway point in this book. I can think of really the part where he rescues those kids, and then he has got to fight off the um the Balawai, like the mercenaries and the families and stuff. And like the opening part of the book does a really good job of like making you feel like this war is like just so goddamn stupid. Like there's nobody, like everybody's lost the point completely. Like it's just hate, and like no one even really remembers why they're fighting, or if they do, it's like that's beyond the point. There it's like it's a sport at this point basically. And like at that point Mace Windu was right in the middle of it. Because he rescues these Balawai children. But even still, the Balawai don't trust him. They take pot shots at him and try to kill him. Then he's in the middle of this big war. And I really enjoyed that part because it was like, yeah, this is just a messy, like this is just war, and there's no one's gonna win. It's just completely wrong. And then after that point, I think the book kind of lost the the thread for me a little
That's when
bit.
we got our action movie.
Yeah. It's just like for me the first, and I kind of wonder whether that's like Matthew Stover wrote the first half of the book and then like submitted that for like an early edit or something, and they're like, yeah, this is like going to be too heavy. So like cuz it almost does feel like it's the second part of the book's done by a different author. Not saying it was, I'm just saying like it seems like he purposefully changed the tone.
Yeah, I don't. It tries to wrap everything up a bit too cleanly, which may be
Mhm.
a Star Wars thing, where it's
Mhm.
like, oh, the
Like he
solution to all
ends
your
the war.
problems is just don't kill each other. Like, oh, don't kill each. Why didn't we think of that?
If you're having a big war, just don't.
Yeah, and then he goes back off to fight the other big war.
Yeah. Yeah. Um yeah, it's like I don't know, that part was kind of shitty. And yeah, like I don't think I needed an action movie at the end. Especially not with like another outside force coming to save things, because like that's not the solution. And like I don't know what kind of message that is, because like it is a colonial war. Like the war
Yeah,
is happening because an outside force came in and tried to claim like riches off the planet. Like so you're just having
yeah,
a so now there's a benevolent government somewhere. Like I don't know.
yeah. The last few pages are basically colonialism good, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Um, just look at my notes here. And I also found that in that second half, Nick's character also became a lot more of comic relief.
Yeah.
Um,
Once he has his like initial big moment in
mhm.
that section, it's like once he makes the decision to kind of side with Mace in that, then
Yeah.
it just it he kind of has already done his purpose, and then he's just there to be told to shut up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like he has some lighthearted moments in the first half, and he's got some jokes, but like he's still obviously like a distressed character throughout a lot of what's going on. Like he's got moments where he's quiet. Like the second half of the book is just him saying "she" a lot and like saying, "Oh, we're gonna die, aren't we, Mace?" It's like, all right, come on now. um,
But
what
we
did you
did.
think of? Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to bring up the rattle test, so you can go. It's probably more relevant than what I was going to talk
I was
about.
just, no, go ahead. I was gonna about to move on, so feel free.
Well, there was a bit of like how they got uh the Jedi into the order,
Mhm.
and it's Mace joining. So he's like, my next lesson, Yoda had come to take the rattle away, and I, with my infant's instinctive selfishness, had refused to release it. Uh, Holding on with both my hands and all I could summon of the Force, the rattle broke to my infant mind a tragedy like the end of the world. For that had been Yoda's way of introducing the Jedi to law of non-attachment. Holding too tightly what we love will destroy it. I feel like that's just going to bring even more like attachment disorders to the Jedi and make them more afraid of losing shit. Like that just seems like
Yeah,
horrible, horrible plan.
yeah. Someone with kids, you can't reason to someone who can't speak. Like, I'm sorry, Mace. You didn't understand that when you were a kid. That didn't help. I'm sorry. It
Yeah,
just
like
didn't.
this, the Jedi really do need like some sort of like child psychiatrist or psychologist to be in the order. Like,
Mm.
oh, this is actually none of what you're doing is good, but if you won't, if you need to do this, if you need to just
You need to kidnap
indoctrinate
children.
these children,
Yeah.
this is not how you make them not be afraid of losing things. You don't
Hmm.
crush their toys when they're children. Like Jesus Christ, is it's
Next time we
awful.
order McDonald's, I'm gonna eat one of Gus's nuggets and be like, Kelsey, I
Hey,
was just teaching him not to get attached.
yeah, like fuck,
I don't want him to
Yoda's a
be obese
dick.
when he gets older.
I want me to be obese.
Yeah, exactly. Um, what did you think of speaking of Jedi? What did you think about Depa? I feel like her kind of character at the intro is never fully delivered. Like the levels that she is at that point when she's recording that holo message. I don't know. What
Well,
do you
that
what do
was
you think?
faked, right? So
Well, it was faked, but I mean, like, I guess I just don't really understand why she wanted him there in the first place. Then.
yeah, that setup was like it was trying to like it's unclear if it was like, are you trying to keep him away, get him there? Are you trying to get him there and then do something to show him what's going on, or are you really because she kind of goes back and forth on it a bit herself, where it's like,
That's what I thought that she was. So my understanding was the setup was fake, like the slaughter was fake, but her kind of speech, I didn't know if that was or not.
mm.
But I might have just missed that. It's very possible I just missed that
Like I
part.
don't think the basic sentiments of it were fake, but like uh
Poetics and
the core of what she was saying, she believed. But I don't think she'd fallen as far as she had, or as far as she was pretending to yet, and then she
hmm
kind of did by the end of the book.
hmm
And she doesn't really get a lot done.
hmm
She's mostly there as kind of the warning to Mace, and then she just spends the rest of the Clone Wars in a coma.
I also don't know if she was that far gone. I mean, she tried to kill herself, which for a Jedi is like really bad. Like
Yeah,
how
she was
Jedi see
more
life.
like in despair than necessarily
Yeah, like
super
again,
uber
that's such a
dark.
Star Wars thing. Like, oh, she's got a serious like breakdown. Put her in a coma in a bag to tank till the end of the Clone Wars.
When does
um,
I'm
or
not really
presumably,
clear what happened. No, she's
I don't think
she's
she's
gone
comes
forever
back.
in
Yeah,
Legends. I don't think she really she's
yeah.
because she's in there in the Clone Wars comics when like Trisaw's there. She's like
Hmm.
kept in a garden up on the Jedi roof or some shit. But in because she's not on the council anymore, Obi-Wan gets her spot. And
Right.
that's kind of got to be the case in canon as well, where she's like she goes through something similar there, gets taken off the council, but then she gets put back on the council in canon later, and she's definitely active again because she's got Kanan
Kanan.
as her apprentice.
Yeah, or
So
Kayla, whatever. Yeah, there's even a reference to it. I think in one of the comics, someone sent this to me. Where she's like, I don't know if I can find the exact thing. Someone sent it to me on Twitter where she's like, basically says she's fine. It like references some event, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm fine now." But yeah, so
I used to get her confused a bit with Luminara, especially with like Rebels, where they find her
Mm,
in that cryo thing. It's like, wait, is that Depa? It's like, it's Luminara Depa, but that's not the
yeah,
case.
yeah. It's like probably the they each have kind of like yeah. I was too, but I couldn't remember. Like I didn't realize a lot of like it's interesting how much of Star Wars like Clone Wars lore ends up being like who George decided to film for the council for that movie.
Yeah.
It's like he's like I wanted to make new aliens for episode 2. It's like oh we
Well,
got lots of stories now.
a lot of it for like Stas Alley and Adigalia and those ones, it was just they were filming in Australia and couldn't get the actors and actresses there for like the Geonosis
hmm
scenes versus the council scenes.
hmm
So they got uh so they turned into new characters.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that's a lot of lots of storytelling to be done there.
Yeah. All right.
um Anything else you want to mention about the book? It's good. I mean, again, I think the first half's a lot better. Second half was quite a letdown. But I'll say Mace Windu's plan was absolute shit. Mace Windu's like, I've got a plan. He's like, droid starfighters are dumb. And then like his plan is getting the entire Republic cruiser destroyed, most of the clones killed, most of the dropships destroyed, and he brings war to the city. Like Mace Windu's plan is dog shit.
Yeah.
Like it's so bad. Like Mace Windu's like, oh, I think about how many civilians died over this battle. It's like you brought the battle to the city. Like, what do you mean? Like, it was your idea at first to load people up in the passenger liners and like try to distract the droids. Like, what are you talking about, Mace?
Yeah.
He's such an like he makes everything way worse.
Yeah, mostly.
Especially because I mean, that guy was tracking his lightsaber as well. So I mean, that's not. I'm not gonna blame that one on him. But I mean, you'd think you'd notice if something was off with your lightsaber, but whatever.
Yeah.
Or I guess they were tracking his signature or something. So whatever.
So you're giving the book an A in our
Yeah,
reductive tier list. So
yeah. I
you
think
were
I'm.
working on a spreadsheet, right? How's that going?
Yeah. So I've been working on the spreadsheet right now. I'm still finishing up the like I'm going through and watching the video we did where we because it's not actually too much work to do because we did a summary video.
Right.
Remember?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out the best way to do it because like it I could have explained this. I think I was drunk though. Um where it's like if I have so I can have like X picks and then Corey's picks separately and then like so like say we got Shatterpoint and it's like okay you give it an A and I give it an A. It's just I want to make it so we can easily sort by um
Yeah.
the grades but like if it's I don't want to get it it's hard to explain
So
the formatting troubles I'm having.
you need 3 columns, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And what we need to do for that is just for the spreadsheet, we need to turn S through D or E or F or whatever we had as the limit. Uh, need to have those as numbers instead.
I
Then
think there's got to be a
for
way to set your own custom alphabet for ordering things.
well, I
But
mean, so
anyway.
you can get an average for the third column.
Oh, okay.
Then you can have the third column be the average of the first two, and
Right.
then we can have that be numbers and just convert that back to the letter grade.
Yeah, I guess for me it's like okay, if you want to like say I want to sort Corey's by highest, like is that going to mess mine up? Like I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense.
You
I just got
can't
to play
have
with it a
them
bit more.
both sorted that way at the same time,
That's why I
but
think it's probably better if I just have it be two separate columns for each of us and then do one at the bottom like of like an average or something. I don't know.
okay. We'll
But yeah,
figure
we'll
that
work
out.
on
But
it. Yeah, we'll figure that out later.
we're making
Boring.
progress.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna agree. I think I'm putting this with A as well. Matthew
Mhm.
Stover is quickly becoming one of my favorite Star Wars authors. I don't think he's written a bad book. So
No. I asked him if he'd give me the Yuuzhan Vong interpretation and he said no.
yeah. Well, we do have a few emails. Well, we had a lot of emails, but I deleted a lot of emails.
Yeah, of course. A lot of spam
Uh,
emails.
yeah. We
Sorry.
got a special guest,
Yeah. Want to say
special
hi, Gus?
request.
Okay.
Say hi, everybody.
Hi, Gus.
August, what do you rate Shatterpoint?
They hear me.
Yeah, they can hear you.
I mean, I've been the
You said there's
Hi,
me. All right.
Gus.
Can you say Shatterpoint gets an A? Good enough. All right. Go on then. Back up. All right. Sorry. What were you saying? Sorry. I
No,
let my child distract me from
I
starting.
was saying I deleted a lot of spam.
Yeah, we've been getting. I've been trying not to talk about it because I don't want to encourage whoever's doing it, but
Well, I just wasn't aware you were job hunting as much as you are.
yeah, I know for legal assistant jobs. Yeah.
All
Very
right.
cool.
So our first questions come from Austin, who also sent their thoughts for the book. But their questions were, what do you think Deba's ultimate fate would have been? Purely speculating, do you think Stover meant for everyone else to leave her alone? Or was it a plot thread that could have been followed up on later? Similarly, how did you like Vaster's villain? Would you have read a story about him busting heads in prison or something?
I think he leaves it purposefully ambiguous. I forget which Spartan it is, if it's Kelly or Linda in Halo, who like is literally in the first book she dies, but Master Chief is like she can maybe be resurrected if we find. It's like I feel like he literally meant to put her in stasis, which is kind of what he does. He wants you to put his slipper back on. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think he would have had any problems with her being rehabilitated, but I also don't think like when you're working with a big franchise, you got to kind of realize that a lot of the time you can set things up, but like you may not have the ultimate choice on what happens to a character.
Yeah.
So I think he was probably leaving it open. Carvaster was cool. I liked his character, but I don't know if I needed a story about him.
Yeah, I like Carvaster. I'm glad he's back in Shadows of Mindor, but I'll have to see how I feel about him there. I do think like maybe Stover would have cared or been more invested in someone else doing something with Nick or Carvaster. Like Nick is in
Yeah.
Coruscant Knights, but like Depa is a pre-existing character that he went and did something with. And like Star Wars authors and authors in general, they're obviously going to be a bit more attached to their own characters. Like Timothy Zahn being not thrilled with what happens to Mara, but yeah, there was also a question about the how do you picture the gunships? I thought of them like droid gunships, but obviously doesn't work. Black Planet LAATs. So they're actually made by Cinar rather than Rathana, so they'd probably look fairly different. I don't think Stover was picturing them as being like lad equivalents per se, because they seem to have a decent amount of space inside as well.
There was one point that really messed me up where it talked about because Mace is jumping in and attacking the gunship, and he describes going into like the weapon bulbs. I was like, "What? Like, is this a lat?" Because it is kind of described for a minute like it's a lat. Like you know how they've got those little turret bulbs that the
Yeah.
gunners go in, but it turns out that those are like laser cannons or something. I kind of imagined it almost like the what's the Imperial dropship from
The
it's in
IDT
yeah, I almost imagine like the IDT but with
bulb turrets.
bulb turrets, yeah.
I could see that. Because it does have
But
kind of the Cinar-y tie panel stuff,
but it needs some space because you're right. It talks about holding like 20 to 30 people, which a lat could not. I think a lat holds like what, a dozen maybe? I don't know.
yeah, and they were like pretty well situated in there. So
Yeah.
there seems to be a decent amount of room to maneuver inside it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Austin. Our next email comes from Christopher, who says, Dear Corey, in your lore video on the Pentastar alignment, you present the picture of the alignment being a totalitarian nightmare, worse than Palpatine's empire in some respects, especially in regards to alien suppression. However, on Wikipedia and most Star Wars source books, it paints Artist Kane as a pragmatic Imperial who tried to truly practice the New Order and had a strong distaste for human high culture, allowing non-humans to serve in the Pentastar Patrol and being given leadership positions. As a premier Pentastar expert, is Kane a good Imperial like Pelion? There's a lot to unpack there. Or a total villain? What do you think, Justin? Any thoughts here?
No, go ahead.
So, the way Kane is usually presented is that like his dad is a complete human supremacist, and Kane personally doesn't care as much, but he tries to live up to his dad's ideals. So he is, on a personal level, probably wouldn't have cared as much about suppressing alien rights, but he does it in practice. And while there were aliens that served in like the Pentastar patrols and stuff, the Pentastar line was still heavily involved in alien slaving, and Kane was involved because of trying to like make his daddy proud in forming Comp Nor, even though he did leave it eventually. So like
the aliens are also fascists.
yeah, like he wasn't as bad as Ishin Ilraz, is kind of like good for him. Like it's hard to give you credit for being like not explicitly the worst, just okay with people doing the worst stuff because it gets you farther. It's not that much better.
He was kind of like, wasn't he kind of the Pentastar alignment, kind of like a bastion for the hardliners too?
Yeah,
So,
like they
it makes
tried
sense.
very much to do like New Order stuff as much as possible,
Yeah.
while they still had some elements of like aliens could do things that they couldn't necessarily do in other places, but it was always a mixed bag.
Yeah, so it makes sense if you got that kind of that bastion, that it is going to end up being, kind of crazy in there.
Yeah. Lords of Arnor asks, love the podcast and Shatterpoint's the first book I was able to read along with you guys thanks to Audible. So my question is that it seems to me Matthew Stover is really good at diving into characters and really explain how they work while also working in generally very dark settings like Mace and Harun Kal, Anakin Revenge of the Sith, and Jason during Traitor. So my question is, if Matt Stover ever writes a Star Wars book in the new canon, what character do you want him to write about and why? Me personally, I would like to see him write about Barriss Offee and how she turns into the Dark Jedi she becomes in the 5th season of the Clone Wars.
That'd be an interesting one. I thought he was leading towards the Kylo Ren answer there. So I mean, I guess we've had the comics and stuff, but I mean, that's the story that I'm sure is going to be told at some point. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
My answer would probably be Ahsoka.
Ahsoka would be a good one.
Like a post-Endor Ahsoka. But we're going to get a post-Endor Ahsoka, so.
Yeah. I don't know. How much do we even know about what happened to Barriss? I'm trying to think back to that whole arc. Like, yeah, I don't even really remember. But that could be interesting. I don't know. Like, I feel like it's gonna be a while till Star Wars returns to a bunch of Clone Wars stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's probably for the best. Like, there was like 20 years where we just got loaded with Clone Wars stuff nonstop.
Yeah.
So.
There's Clone Wars for days everywhere. All right. Do you want to end it there?
Yeah. I unexpectedly have a little munchkin, so it might be best if we end it for there. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for watching. Next week, are we going to continue with YJK?
Yeah, I think we'll be doing Young Jedi Knights next week, and at that point, we'll be able to get to any questions that we've missed for this week. So if you didn't get your question answered, don't worry about it. We'll talk about it next week. Is there
Emperor's Storehouse next week? Is the book title? I think?
The Emperor's Plague?
Yeah, Emperor's Plague, right?
Emperor's Storehouse it didn't test well with the young audiences.
What's a storehouse? Yeah.
The Emperor's organizational standards. Do you have any ideas for the week after that? If people want to get started, are we at Black Fleet Crisis?
We might need to start Black Fleet Crisis. Yeah.
All right. Before the Storm.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. So Black Fleet Crisis 1. Did you see that?
Yeah.
He just bounced in on a little thing and then just absolutely wiped out. Just said sorry. Here, do you want to say goodbye? Oh, can you say goodbye, everybody? Make sure to rate 5 stars.
Goodbye.
Make sure to rate 5 stars. It's not going to cut it, buddy. Make sure to rate 5 stars. No, he's not interested.
He is not rating 5 stars.
No, that's going to be a 1 star.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back in about half an hour on X2 with the X2 podcast.
Less children, guaranteed.
Well, Charlie's
Charlie. Yeah, fuck.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.